John, in the hindsight, Monday, how long did it take to actually get your head around what happened on that night?
Well, we reviewed the game on Tuesday, so that's just normal process. Work around where we want to move to from there, what we learnt from it, as we do with every game, and on we go.
What was glaring about it?
Obviously, from quarter time on, we just really didn't match Richmond with the ability to run hard, the intensity around the contest, and that's the easy part to work out what it looked like. The hard part is why was it like that? It was very unlike our group. So there's a lot of different scenarios that we take into account. But that's trying to work out the reason why it happened then. Now it's about planning so that we bounce back and perform better from here on in.
You made a good point that it was so unlike the group. Even everybody didn't expect to see that. So how quickly can you turn that around, mindset, and get ready for
sport shows that mindset can turn around really quickly. Physically, it takes longer. If it was a physical thing, that may take more work. But I'm comfortable that we'll have the group physically and mentally up and going this week.
Do you view it as a confidence form thing, John, or do you view it as are there structural things that you need to change?
Not so much structural, I don't think. No, our players generally have been in pretty good form. Our backs have been going all right. Our forwards have been functioning pretty well. The midfield's been going solid. So really, I would say overall ball use and maybe it's confidence. I'm not sure.
What about the record at Patterson Stadium where you were so strong? So you're 2 from 6 and nearly 1 from 6.
Yep. Yeah, well, the nearly doesn't matter because we're nearly 3 from 6 as well. So, don't worry about the nearly. But the obvious thing is that our form this year hasn't reached the standards that we would like consistently, and certainly not at home. We need to be playing better footy everywhere.
Some people say you're slow. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's not right?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. No, we've got some players that are slow, but as in relative to other players, which would be the same with every team. No one asked that question last year or the year before. So similar group of players. We haven't added slow players into the team. So I would suggest that people are clutching at straws, throwing those sort of ideas around, but it is something that we're prepared to review and critique and assess.
Would you agree, though, or concede that you looked slow the other night when they started chipping the ball through the holes?
We look slow to man up. We look slow to cover those areas of the ground, not necessarily slow in terms of our leg speed, but slow to react. Yes, I would definitely agree with that. It was one of our poorest efforts in terms of letting a team work through us. But overall, the inside 50s contested footy, we were getting to the contest as much as what Richmond were, and we just weren't as clean with our ball handling, and that's nothing to do with leg speed.
Worsha, do you back these players again for this week, or do you think there's need to make a few changes?
Well, there's a couple of scenarios. Form is the biggest one. If players are out of form, then their spots are under question because we've got some players in outstanding form in the waffle that are really pushing hard to come into the side. The other side of it is that we've been struggling to get a consistent team on the field. So a few changes into last week's team, coming off 4 or 5 the week before. This week we've got the opportunity to have a fairly stable lineup, so we're balancing that up at the moment.
Is Andrew Gaff one of those players that's out of form?
He was on the weekend. His game was below what we'd expect from him, but it's a great learning opportunity for Andrew as well, going through what he's currently going through.
He hasn't laid a tackle in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Is that a concern? Do you need more from him in that side of things? Would that decide whether he stays in the
Well, that depends on whether he's running away from having a lower tackle or whether he hasn't had those opportunities. But overall, his form hasn't been as good as it was in his first couple of seasons. But we're aware of what he's got to work on to get that form back for sure.
When you say you want to back him, does that mean backing him by staying in the team, or maybe back him to send him back to try and get a bit of confidence?
Yeah, or back him to give him a rest and freshen him up. He's a young player, very young player who's had a massive workload in the way he plays the game and what he's brought to the team for pretty much 2.5 years non-stop. So there's 3 options there to look at.
The lack of consistency in the lineup that you mentioned, how much has that played into the results, do you think?
It's hard to put specific measures on any one of those things, but it has been frustrating not to be able to get the consistent lineup. But that's only a very small part of us not performing as well as we should.
Does it affect players on the field, though, when they haven't been playing with the same players week in, week out?
It has some effect, but not, as I said, not a massive effect. But, our back line through Adam Selwood been in and out all year, Waters in and out, Butler in and out, Brennan in and out, Smith some games, Schofield in and out, Mackenzie missed a couple of games. It's been that we really haven't had a back 6 playing a lot together. We're keen to get that at some point, but we'll work through that. But again, it's no excuse for Monday night's performance, and it's no excuse for our overall position on the ladder.
What about Lacroix, John? He hasn't looked the same player as he has from a couple of years ago. Is there any theories?
I'll break your arm, Tanya, and have a go at playing footy.
Is it down to that, or is it that coming back from the knee? What do you think?
No, look, Lecker's been performing pretty well. He had a quiet night the other night. That was his disappointing game. But other than that, he's been playing his role for the team. His kicking hasn't been as accurate as we'd expect from Lecker, but he's been getting the shots at goal and winning the footy for us. So I'm confident that he's going to be okay.
He's a player you're back in to stay there and...
Yep.
Well, externally, then I guess it seems to be a bit of panic. What's happening to the Eagles? They're not the team that we thought they were going to be. But
yep.
Are you taking the view then that just a lot of the players had a really bad night the other night? Is that sort of what you?
Yeah. Well, overall, they weren't. The actual team game was pretty poor. As I said, the inside 50s were pretty equal. Maybe we won them by 1. The desire was there, but the ability to match Richmond for intensity non-stop throughout the night wasn't there. So we've got to assess why that is.
It's a bit old-fashioned maybe, but you pull a couple of them aside into your room or into your office, just sit down and say what's wrong at the moment, or why aren't we doing what we expect?
No, it's a good suggestion, Baz. I'll take it on board, mate. Talk to players. That's really throwing the textbook out, mate.
Do you do that? I mean, does one-on-one contact happen anyway after a loss like that? Like, would you pull? Do you speak to all of them one-on-one? Or?
No, I speak to the players, non-stop. Non-stop, one-on-one in small groups, casually, formally, in my office, on the track. That's happening non-stop. So, I'll give them a cuddle and we'll move on, mate.
Maybe that's what they need at the moment.
Maybe that's what I need.
John, how difficult is it each week to choose who will be the sub going into the game?
Well, there's a lot of factors to weigh up. Your sub is around a player, well, to play a certain role. You can't really plan how you're going to use a sub because he's really there to cover off any early injuries in the game and keep the game even between the two sides for longer. So you don't know who's going to get injured early in a game, so you can't really plan for that. So the idea around the sub then is a player who's got a good lot of footy under their belt so that they can afford to have a game where maybe they only play 30 or 40 minutes. It's not going to set them back too far. A player coming back from an injury that's ready to just play around that many minutes. Maybe a bit more if you get an injury early, but you can still manage it. So the way we used Nat Nui earlier on in the year and also Embley. So there's those two main scenarios, I think, around who plays as a sub. And sometimes it's a player that you actually want to give them a light week. So it might be a player who's had a heavy workload and you can use as a sub.
Has that strategy changed at all since the sub situation?
Not really, no.
And it seems to be different from club to club, doesn't it? Some bring young kids in to bring in a spark, and is it?
Yeah, well, again, that would be taking into account their workload. You know, if it's a young player and they've been playing consistent footy and for that week, a lighter load, but up at senior level fits into that program. That's how you would look at it. But you wouldn't bring a young player in if they haven't played any footy and they needed to play a lot of game time.
When you needed to activate the sub on the week, was Embley the player that you needed at the time?
We activated the sub to get a player to give us some more run. So definitely.